Hi.
Hi. Wow. So you ready?
Awesome. We're ready. Ready.
Okay. So welcome to Change for the Better, the power of arts in education. We are on episode 14. We're doing 14 of these already. Crazy. I'm Stacy Tiro, a high school performing arts teacher for over 25 years. I've taught a lot of amazing people. Now that so many of my students are adults, they'll teach me how, through the lessons in my classroom, they have been changed for the better. I want to call him a young man, but he's less young now.
That is
But
not. That is so true.
so much true.
I
Um,
forget it all the time.
I am super honored that today's guest has had quite a long career as a first responder. He's worked in EMS, fire, law enforcement, emergency dispatch. I think he's like touched on every aspect of first responding that there is. He is the epitome of protect and serve. And even back in high school, he volunteered for the Spring Valley Fire Department for a couple of years. So it started out like really, really early on serving his community. I've come to learn, and I may have known this, but it's been a long time. But he was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec. He's a Quebecois. But fate would have it that he would somehow be in Spring Valley High School just at the right time for us to cross paths. So I remember him as a gregarious, enthusiastic young man with this like beautifully bright, gorgeous smile. And he was one of, at the time, the few young men to brave the waters of my dance class.
Yeah.
And he performed very happily in our dance concerts. And at the end of the year, and he seemed to really, truly thrive in that classroom experience. And well, how do I know this? Because over the years, we have kind of touched base through, random Facebook messaging and phone connections. And he would always say, just how important those early experiences in dance were to him so many years ago. So today I'm really excited to chat about this with him face to face from Canada
Yes.
and
Across the border.
reminisce about those good old days. So we're going to get right into question number 1. And we start with tell me your name, the year that you graduated, and a little bit about what you're doing now.
So everyone knows me as Jean-Guerdy Saint-Louis, from class of '03 in Spring Valley. Now I am back in law enforcement. I've kind of shed the skin a little bit on the extra firefighting and EMS because of injuries and a few health issues doctors were worried about. I just need to slow down. Since high school, I have been pretty much burning the candle at both ends, and it's starting to catch up a little bit, physically at least. I forget all the time how old I am. Obviously, it feels like it was just yesterday I left high school,
Mm,
and then you are speaking to people younger than you, like, oh my God, it's been 20 years, really?
it's crazy.
And it flies. Yeah, I just got out running, and I never stop. I think now I'm closer to my 40s, so I'm starting to slow down and enjoy the day to day a little bit more. And I am a lot less career focused. I think I've done as much as I could do career wise when it comes to emergency services. So I'm trying to enjoy the day to day a little bit more and enjoy being with my kids. I do have teenagers that are older from a previous relationship, and I have babies now, a 3 and a 19-month old. So I am trying to enjoy it a little bit more than my first two. I know it's a little unfair to them, but I mean, at the time, right? Running the fire calls and responding, being gone away from home for several days because of fires and stuff like that. So it was a little different living for them
Mm,
than my youngest ones now. Now I almost try to turn off my phone when I'm home because I still fall under the as emergency service personnel, when there is a shortage of us, we can't refuse to go in because there's no one to do the job. So I still fall within that privy, but I try to limit the amount of time I spend out. I try to go camping more. I try to enjoy, watching them grow and watching them learn and playing in the backyard. I've discovered I love gardening. I love just playing with flowers and stuff like that, which is not surprising considering my mom was very, very much into that. There's a lot of things that went wrong with the pandemic, a lot of losses, but there's a lot of gain as well. We kind of close the circle a little bit. We kind of closed out that social media dependency. We closed out everyone always on their phone and running, and the hustling and busting got slowed down, and we really took a step back in time. I feel it was very, very reminiscent of my teenage years, where you wanted to reach me. I'm not home. Well, you can't reach me. You don't know where I am. That's all that it is. So I several times went camping, left my phone behind, and we have one phone with us and for emergencies, obviously, and that was it. And we just went for a couple of days and just completely disconnected. It felt so great. I hadn't done that in years. I try to take vacations. I try to get away, but you always have to check in the emails. What's going on, so you're not too far off the beat when you get back.
Right.
But I just disconnected completely. We were working 7 days a week during the pandemic, pretty much all of us. As a team falls out with COVID, another team would just pick up the slack and just keep going.
Right, right.
Um,
That I mean,
just
that was
just
so hard on the first responders going through all the COVID nonsense.
It is. It is. All extended families felt it too. We have that fear. Am I going to bring it home? Am I going to get my family sick and so on and so forth. I was lucky enough. I didn't. I catch it very early on when it wasn't known what it was,
Right.
which automatically we quarantine ourselves because of our experience. We like, okay, I got to stay away from people, and
Mhm.
then I caught the more contagious strain, which is Omicron.
Mm,
But by then I was already triple vaccinated, so the effects and the recovery wasn't as bad.
right.
But I still came out with some health issues from it. With breathing. Us being first responders, always on the go, you quickly realize how important it is to be healthy because I would take a step and I couldn't catch my breath. So I'm still on puffers, we call them out here,
Yeah,
on
yeah. Here too.
to kind of help with the lung effects from getting COVID. It's been an interesting few years. It really went full circle, as we've spoken about before, and it really was brought about by COVID by slowing down. I mean, I have never. I worked strange shifts, so I've always been on the road alone,
Mm.
but I was working like eight to eight, and there was no one on the road. it
Wow.
was it was a very surreal experience, and find the hospital so full, but once you get out of the hospital environment,
Nothing.
it's so dead.
Yeah.
Malls are completely shut down, businesses are completely shut down. It was quite taken aback. You're like, oh god. I always thought I had time. I always thought like I had time to do more, and then you realize time is that precious commodity that we it's not renewable for us. The times you've lost, that's it, they're gone.
Right. And you have to make the most of
And
what you have now.
exactly, and you kind of have to adapt. It's like the theme we were talking about, that common theme. This too shall pass, and changing your perceptions of things. And it's
Mm.
been a recurring theme in my life, and I'm sure in everyone else's life over the last 20 years, things have been so different.
Well, and
Um,
that's why I like doing this podcast thing, because what I notice as I talk to everybody is that there are those recurring themes of that, of the things that you're talking about, and it's nice to make the connections across the years, and for people who are listening and watching, that everybody's going through this, and these are adults, some in their 20s, some in their 30s, some in their 40s, and I think it's really important to hear these conversations about everybody's experience, because it's really quite a shared experience, even in our sort of bubbles, in our isolation. Yeah.
I agree. I agree absolutely. And it doesn't know borders. I know a lot of people have the perception that, well, it's happening in Europe, it doesn't affect me. It's happening in the US, it doesn't affect me. It's happening in Canada, it doesn't affect me. It's happening in Mexico. Borders are so porous now because we've created this globalized civilization, right? We
Yeah.
depend on one another,
Mm.
though we want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
We get to this point where it's something happening anywhere in the world will affect us in a sense or not, and we've seen it more and more with supply chain issues. We've seen it, with weather issues, and um, it kind of removed us. I know us growing up in the US, we're very US centric. A lot of things were American, and I enjoyed that a lot. From my American roots, where I said, I wish Canadians were a little bit more patriotic at times.
Mm.
But at the same time, you realize we are one world. The things that we do affect us all. It will affect our future. It'll affect our kids. And that's some of the biggest things that I know everybody's wrestling with, especially those who have kids. You're like, oh my God, what is the world going to look like for them? I know my years, we were that transition of technology, and what they call it fintech, where everything is technologically based. Starting on a typewriter, when I was in the fifth and sixth grade, learning to type to, getting those big books with the green screen and the green letters that you're learning from to what we have now. We carry computers in our pockets, every day.
Every day.
Our parents couldn't have imagined it, and having teachers like yourself and many others at Spring Valley who were from that older generation, kind of reminding us you don't realize how much things have changed and will change. You guys coming from the 80s in high school, I can't even imagine, that sense of, wow, this is a different world. And I
Yeah.
said that to someone the other day. I said, I've just hit my parents' stride where my parents were like, this is such a different world. You don't understand. I used to walk 10 miles to school. I'm like, yeah, Joe, yeah, I used to walk to school.
Yeah.
I literally lived, our home was 3.5 blocks from Spring Valley.
Yeah.
I could just
Yeah.
walk out, turn, and then I was home. And now to having people fear even their kids walking home, which is some of the jobs I've held as a first responder, where I've had to patrol areas like schools and parks and so on and so forth.
Mm.
And the seeing kids being walked by their parents, I don't recall any kids at Spring Valley being walked by their parents, no matter the
No.
age that you were, even from the junior highs. We all walked to school together,
Right.
and that fear of the unknown just wasn't so prevalent, and that fear of people. The communities were more responsive to each other and more supportive of each other.
Mm.
I think now with technology, it's created that separation that we kind of gained back during COVID, which I hope it will stay, but the reality is I know it won't.
Well,
Unfortunately, it won't
I think
stay.
technology can be used for good and social media can be
Agreed.
used for good. And so that's, the direction that we're trying to go is to find the best ways to utilize that. Let's kind of bring it back to your Spring Valley days, right? Let's smile. There he is. There's that
Yes.
smile. Using your adult brain, your almost 40 something adult brain. Describe your adolescent self. Describe young Jean-Guerdy.
you know, Being young and so optimistic, so ready for the world, naive in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
We are given all these skills and all those abilities and all those desires to perform and be good and be great, and solidify ourselves and into the world, and quickly realizing we are just a sand in the sandbox. We are literally a grain of sand in the sandbox.
Mhm.
But it's not a bad thing to just be a sand in the sandbox, really. Like, we don't together we make a much larger impact than a single individual can.
Mm.
And I feel I've lost that optimism a little bit. Obviously, it's impossible not to.
Sure.
We get knocked down a lot as adults, and I find we are not prepared enough for the knockdowns. We face them in school a little bit. As you start going through the grades and college gets closer, like, you kind of feel that weight kind of building on you, and then
Mhm.
you get to college and it's off again, and you're like, okay, let's do this. Let's see how far we can go. I find that we shelter our children too much. We don't talk about the difficult things a lot. I know a lot of parents are doing that now. I know in your classes, though, it was a dance class. Those were a lot of things that we discussed,
Mhm.
openly. A lot of that stuff, and a lot of those barriers, a lot of stereotypical barriers. A male can dance, and look at it now. From when I was in your class, right? I was one of a very few
Mhm.
that was in that class, and I took that class because I was like, I can't do one more fake basketball game in gym, one more let's run around the field in the gym. I wanted something new, and dance was always something that I loved, but I never had time for. And
Mhm.
to have it now being put in a place where I can absolutely take it and make time, and it's part of my curriculum, it was so amazing. It was so freeing to get into class and get take all that off. It's like walking through your doors in school, and walking into class is just like everything's left behind. That history exam, who cares? Let's get some steps in. I know it taught me to live in the moment a bit more and not be so future focused,
Mhm.
and to appreciate, the little things, appreciate the different levels of expression. Kind of even helped me in my own careers, body language, and facial expressions, and all those put together were all things that I learned, that I solidified in your class. How people cannot hear what you're saying, but they can see it, and you need to tell that story using your body. Now you learn literally a different way of communicating. Though I started dancing young, by getting thrown in a ballet class without ever wanting to, because it was a no, right? My friends made fun of me for months,
Sure.
you know, being a boy in ballet. Those unique experiences kind of build you, where now people trying to bully you in high school and in college is like, what are you doing? This is not going to work. I'm the guy that danced ballet since it was like 6. So I'm sorry, man. You got to try something else. It
Mm.
kind of made you more resilient, and I think it helped me get through life as it stands. As I fall and I needed to stand up each time, it
Right.
really helped.
So
So
what was something that you picked up or that you learned in the class, in the dance class, that helped you to like manage or regulate yourself?
the importance of accepting your emotions and having emotions. I think it's something that was really important, because coming up, boys having emotion was very taboo. A
Mm.
boy crying, oh my god, watch out, the whole school's gonna know about it, and you're gonna be bothered forever. But this is a safe space that was acceptable to feel emotions through the music, through the dance. So it kind of allowed you to get accustomed to your emotions. Because as teenagers, as our emotions are just all over the map.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is the end of the world, and being in an environment where you can process that safely and not have to worry about judgment, and not have to worry about fallback from feeling emotions was so important, because that's some of the things that we go through a lot. The moment you come out of high school, like it's going to start hitting you like a ton of bricks, and that really helped me regulate my high school years. Helped me go through those demanding exams, those tough weeks. I was also an athlete in high school, and any athlete will tell you, those hell weeks are hell. Getting back into the rhythm from summer, those hell weeks are truly hell. And I think having dance and theater to kind of fall to kind of enjoy it, which was my thing.
Mhm.
It really, really helped regulate all the other stuff.
That's
Losing a
great.
race, I'd lose a race, I'd come off the bus and then be, oh, okay, we got to go to theater practice now. That theater practice helped me process that emotion, working so hard to get to something and not really achieving it. And it's okay. It's a lesson for next time. It's a preparation. Something you learn from it. And that's almost a lot of stuff that we learned from you. When you sat down and said, how did you guys feel about the show? How did the show go? And for you specifically, what did you get out of it? That really, really helped regulate us.
Ah,
And to see that people are trying to remove these programs from schools, I'm like, why? It'd be better off removing a calculus class, because let's face it, many of us do not use calculus outside of school,
right,
ever,
right.
because we're not in a field that we need to. In law enforcement, why am I going to lose calculus for? Never going to be useful. But I think
So
we should
what
prioritize.
I was gonna say, what were some of the lessons that you learned then that you're like that you still carry on with today, that you still use today?
today I still sit down after a long day and listen to a great song, and I can process emotions. As law enforcement or even emergency responders, we see a lot. We really try to create that separation of work and life.
Mhm.
Sometimes it bleeds into a life. It's hard, um, helping people through the hardest parts of their life. Some facing loss, some facing permanent injury, some losing everything. I went to a fire on Christmas Day. The entire family was there celebrating together, and unfortunately, something happened and the tree caught fire in the entire house. All gifts, all clothes, belongings for the family that were receiving was all gone. Taking them in and watching them just pick themselves up and say, I am so happy we are all okay. We are all here. This is just material stuff that can be replaced. Going through that and having to be professional about it, and then getting home and putting a great theater show, yes, putting
Yeah.
on a great theater show, or putting a movie like Mamma Mia, it brings me back to high school, brings me back to those great memories of being on stage, of being in class, and it really helps me regulate even today. And it's quite incredible that we don't teach more of it, because it really does help. The arts, that connection with music, it helps us go through the hard times. I always say I can listen to a song that tells me exactly how I'm feeling without me being able to express it. Sometimes I don't know how I'm feeling. I can't put it into words. And then you listen to a song and it's like, wow, that's exactly what I'm feeling.
Right. It's that nonverbal. It's like intangible, but you feel it, like you know it.
Yeah,
And a
yeah,
lot of times when I'm teaching, my words just kind of go away, and I literally am like speaking rhythm and nonsense. But I'm like,
yeah,
I know that I just like what I just said was nonsensical, but do you understand? And they're like,
yeah.
yep. I'm like, all right then.
It's unexplainable, really. It really is unexplainable. But again, even then, I never thought it'd be something that I'd still carry with me till today, but I do. Like we have dance parties still at my house, with my kids, and boys or girl. My son loves, my oldest 14 loves hip hop. He's been in hip hop since it was a little thing, and I've always taken him. I said, sure, want to go hip hop? Let's do it. We watch Rent together, and all the questions that came with that, all things again that we talked about in class. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay, like to feel the emotions and learn from others' emotional baggage without having to absorb that emotion. You can process your feelings that way. And my son is very sensitive, as a kid, so he was always made fun and picked on. I'm like, it is not a fault to be sensitive. It is not. It really isn't. It means that when someone is hurt, when someone is suffering, you can feel it. When someone's happy, you can share it with them, and you can help someone go through the difficult times. And those are stuff that I learned from being in your class. And all the time I say this, I said, I don't think we appreciate enough the time that we've had in those classes and in those moments. And I think again, I'm like, oh yeah, we were teenagers. We didn't appreciate anything back then, right? We were going through the motions and try and put on a brave face,
Trying to
and
survive. Adolescents
yes,
trying to
yeah,
survive.
trying to survive, trying to figure out what you like to go to college, trying to figure out, which way am I going, which way am I taking. But like those subtle nuances that hey guys, how was that for you? The rhythm, did you understand it? Like, can you close your eyes and feel the music and see what it puts to you to kind of express, all these things, they still apply. I Till this day, I said, you know what? I find it a lot easier to say download myself before I get home. I'll put on a great song that I love, and then I'll drive home. And by the time I get there, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go in the house, and I'm ready to switch,
Like
into
it's
home mode.
yeah, it's like the wrapping up of the one and being ready to move on to the next. We sometimes we take our work home with us. It just happens. And that concept of really being mindful and present and in the moment for our families and for ourselves, they
Yes.
don't need us, they don't need our work baggage, they need us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really important. And I feel, especially in my industry and just in emergency services altogether, now that I've almost 20 years into that, it's finally being discussed. The emotional baggage that this job carries. But back then it wasn't a thing. Hey, suck it up, buddy. Come on, buttercup. Next call. You're fine, you're good. Put a strong face, you're a brave guy, you got this. And that was it. There was no discussion, there was no debriefing a lot of the times. But as I progress, the debriefing is now customary. That is not abnormal to have a debrief and talk about the emotional baggage that call brought you, or that situation brought you, or
Thank
helping that
God.
family brought you.
Thank
You
God.
know,
Because we need to unravel. We need to get that out. And when we can, and that's like the therapy, my arguments for therapy. When you get to like unravel all that stuff, you can kind of step back and go, oh, okay, I'm going to be okay now.
and exactly, and it's so important. And reminding kids, especially as teenagers, it is okay to not be okay,
Yeah.
and it is important to say when you're not okay. You don't need to always be okay.
Yeah.
And it's okay to need to speak to someone other than mom and dad. It's okay to confide in someone that you trust. I was fortunate that I never had to go look for these things, because you were so good at catching those cues, even living through your own life, having kids, and having your own family to deal with. You were always so in tune with us, where you're like, oh, you're a little off today. Is everything okay? Are you struggling with it? Do you want to talk about something? And I think us as teenagers can never truly appreciate how much that, little bit of, attention to detail that our parents may not have noticed, because they're not with us on all day long. Like
No, no.
like we spend the week at school.
I've always thought it's really incumbent upon teachers. Look, we're not like licensed therapists or anything, but our job is to notice kids and to be there for kids, and to know when they're not okay. And we spend so much time with them.
It's,
You can't
it
you
is
can
so
sense when they come in different, when they come in like not in the right space.
and it's incredible now, even to see the O3 class, how many of them went the teacher route. It is quite impressive to see how many of them went the nursing route.
Mhm.
And you could see, in seeing some of the careers they've chosen, you're like, yes, I totally see her doing that. Like I said, during COVID, downloading all this, I've downloaded 20 years over the last 3 years, where I finally got into therapy and starting really like emptying the tank a little bit, getting all those, old wounds and old scars, truly dealt with,
Mhm.
versus just, skip over. I gotta go to psych because I have to. It's the job. So let's go speak to the psychologist and get our okay and move on.
That's right.
Really sitting down for me. It
Right.
was quite a different feeling, and realizing how much of it just kept going back to high school, kept going back to those amazing classes and those amazing teachers and the coaches we had. And at Spring Valley, people don't give them enough credit. How they support the kids, how they nurture them, and how they help them, survive the teenage years, because that is what it is. With
Yeah.
all these emotions coming in and all these responsibilities just slowly creeping on you year after year. They'll be like, you ready for college? You pick your career you're gonna do forever. You ready now? Okay, go. you know
If you can think of how you have changed since the end of high school, you had talked about being like an optimist and sort of naive. So, like, what else has changed for you in yourself since you left?
I was always a self-assured young man, because of obviously the experiences I've had and the support I've had to be just that. But I feel like, I was always kind of putting on a show.
Mm.
Yes, I got it figured out. I am on it. Yes, that's right. I am the responsible one. But now I truly feel like I am finally fitting in my own skin. I am finally the person, that I've always aimed to be. Enjoy what I enjoy, and I know what I don't. And I kind of finally kind of fine-tuned the things that I'm still trying to fine-tune things, obviously, because we're still people. We still have to learn, and we still have to progress through life, but I feel more comfortable in my skin finally. Yeah, I was always comfortable doing a lot of things, but again, it was always, okay, I made it through this. Yes, alrighty, let's wait. Tomorrow's a new day. But now it's like, yeah, that was a nice experience, but that wasn't such a great experience. We always said, fake it till you make it.
That's right. That's right.
Especially
Fake it till you make
especially
it.
in dance, fake it till you make it,
That's
and
my favorite. That's my favorite expression.
run your steps and go for it.
I'll
and
figure it out
and
from
I
there.
felt like, yeah, and I felt I went a lot A lot of the last few years, I went through, even getting married. I felt it was just a step. I felt it was time. It was the next step to take, so I took it. It was time to have kids, so next step, I took it.
Mm.
And now having my kids, I feel like it was a deliberate choice. Like we sat down, me and my partner, and we're like, okay, are we having kids? Is it something that we want? And why do we want it? And how are we going to do this versus, oh, okay, let's have kids. Oh crap. Oh yeah, that's less sleep. Oh dear. Or sometimes, especially going to a fire call, it takes a long time to get through fires sometimes,
Mm.
which is why the laws have changed to kind of reduce our agencies keeping us out there so long. You're gone for 28, 20 hours, and then you come back home and you're walking in, all you can smell is the fire still, and it's like, now you're a dad, go. And it's like, whoo, okay.
Right.
Can I take a cold shower first? Nope, you got two kids coming in with you, enjoy. And that's kind of how it went. And appreciating and even learning what your partner goes through as an emergency first responder, or even understanding your partner who's pregnant and who's about to give birth to a child, the fears they face, the emotional up and downs they go through. I feel like I didn't appreciate it enough. Not that I didn't appreciate it enough the first time, but we were so busy.
Yeah.
We're so busy with life and hitting our milestones. I have a feeling I may have been one of the first ones to be married in our class and have kids,
Mm.
and then in the reverse, I was the first one, I think, to be divorced. And it's like I was 10 years ahead of everyone, but we were still all the same age. It was a very weird feeling, grounding yourself and taking the time for your mental health and taking your time for your health. I'm trying to instill the fact that I want to be physically healthy, but my physical health depends on my mental health. It depends on
It's
having good sleep
completely,
and eating,
completely.
intertwined,
Yeah.
completely intertwined. And those are things that weren't necessarily very acceptable when we were coming up, but it wasn't acceptable. But guess what? Or a lot of our teachers are like, it's okay. It's part of it. You will get there. You will get it. And yeah, I have gotten there, and I'm like, aha.
What would adult Jean Garrity tell adolescent Jean Garrity to like ease the way?
Enjoy it. Don't rush through it. It is truly not a race. I always said some of my best moments were as an adolescent, because
Mhm.
so many new experiences.
Mm.
But those new experiences have shaped me to be who I am today. The people who got me to slow down, and music class, and English class, and dance class, playing sport, that really got me to slow down and be in the moment, or those moments that have shaped me. Taking the time to be present is so important. And also, we didn't have social media at our fingertips quite yet.
Sure.
It wasn't far. We
Right.
still had access, but it wasn't so in your
On.
face. And if it's like you said, it's a great medium, because I have kept in touch with people from a very long time ago till this day. We've kept in touch. Some people I speak to weekly. Some people we catch up once in a while. But social media is what allows that, because otherwise you'd have to remember the phone numbers and keep getting the phone
I
numbers
know.
and hoping people don't
God.
change their phone numbers, right? That phone book, I can't imagine how many phone books I'd have now, having lived in the US for so long, and then moving back home, having those dual connections. Yeah, you really need to enjoy that almost like that structure that you have. At 7:42 you have to be in those doors. You have homeroom, you have your classes, and your day's over. You do sports or you don't. You do music, you do theater, you do dance, whatever it is that you do, to be present in the moment and enjoy it, because that enjoyment will grow as you age, and in ways you can't even imagine. Being very perceptive and always being future minded, I couldn't see half the stuff that came. A lot of it came out of left field. I felt I was always prepared, but you're never truly prepared until you face those things.
It's true.
And yeah, I
That's
think
why
it's
it's really
important to, like,
important to be in the moment. Just
let
be there
yes,
and
let
figure
kids
it
be
out as
kids.
you're
Let
going.
Yeah, let kids be kids. When you're in school, study hard, do your homework, and follow through. I know the new thing now is, well, I don't need college. You may not, but someone else may,
Yeah.
right? Some won't need college, some will, and it's being versatile. Having that educational background mixed with your experiences that make you, who you are, and it's so important. It is so
Well, and I
important. I
tell
can't.
kids, half the time when you go to school, it's not really about you picking the thing that you're going to do for the rest of your life. It's really about continuing a sense of discipline as you're growing into your adulthood and keeping that like learning process going. So even if you major in business, but you wind up, becoming a dancer, like whatever, it's still important growth and knowledge base that you're bringing in that you can then apply a lot of those things in a different context. So I tell them if you're even like a little bit thinking about it, do it. Just do it because you're going to grow more in the next 4 years than even you have in these first 4 years of your
Agreed.
adulthood.
Absolutely, it is absolutely true. Try dance class.
Right. Yeah.
You might like math. Try it. You may like. This is the time to try. This is the time to experiment. Not just with going out and parties and drinking, but experiment and what you think the future might want to look like for you. And it's prepared me for even today. I mean, I've had three major injuries that I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do after this. Like I really don't. And then I'm like, oh wait, but I did this and I did that and I like this and I like that. And even right now, I'm in uniform still at 40, but I have to face the reality that my injuries will eventually limit me on what I can do. Right now,
Mhm.
I still can do because I'm still fairly young
Mhm.
in the industry as it stands, but I have to start, thinking. So, I've gone back to school several times.
Right.
It doesn't end with high school. It doesn't end with college. It will never end. Having that mind, that studious mind that can absorb and learn, you have to keep it going. Keep your interest up. And I find the darkest time in my life were the times that I stopped that process, where I was stagnant and I didn't
Mhm.
gain anything new. I didn't try anything new, and I feel like the moment I had tried something new, it's like a new light, a new window had opened,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that joy, that desire to learn came back. We all think I'm gonna go to high school, I'm gonna go to college, then I'm done. I
Right.
don't want to see a book. I don't want to see, but it never ends.
No,
And
we have to
especially
keep
now with
learning.
technology,
Yeah.
you have to keep learning. You have
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
learning. You have to keep improving.
So, what is something that you're sort of still grappling with now as the adult?
We were made to be very career focused when we were, at least, or I don't know about other generation. I know my generation was. I'm learning. It doesn't matter if I work, at McDonald's or at Walmart or at on the stock market or at Facebook or at Google. If I'm enjoying what I'm doing and it's allowing me to provide for my family, it is what it is. I worked. I didn't start at McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's in my early 20s while I was in college, and
Mhm.
I made some amazing friends there. But it taught me something that I never thought it could have taught me: is you can have a career at McDonald's. I mean, at the time, my manager had been with McDonald's over 17 years. He had McDonald's stocks. He had, a good 401k, a good retirement fund, and he was supported in his career to grow. And I'm like, what? McDonald's? Really? You know?
It's a
And I,
really big company.
right? It's a global company. Don't limit yourself. I feel like that's how it's become for me now. I'm still grasping with it because I've invested so much in my career. I've given up so much. I have sacrificed so much that it's hard to let go. But I'm
Mhm.
realizing now that it doesn't matter what I do. It really doesn't. As long as I'm happy doing it and I enjoy doing what I'm doing, then it really doesn't matter. And in Canada, where I live, there's a lot of people from different places in the world. So they like. I have a business guy that's now he's in charge of cleaners, and he's like, it is so nice to not be in charge of people's livelihoods and billions of dollars and to just manage people, and he enjoys it. And he's like, that stress that I had, I couldn't live my life, I couldn't focus on my family. He's like, now, I live here, I go home and I'm happy, I play with my kids, I go watch them. I'm like, wow. And then you have people that were doctors and like, I know I work hard to be here, but no, it's really not for me. And that's okay too. They say we change careers multiple times in our lives. I can say it's true. It's truly true. Very few maintain one career throughout their whole entire life. You will see it in teachers, you will see it a lot in very specific fields. Um, but in a field like mine, you have to progress through because, yeah, you want to be a beat cop forever. You may not be able to be. Your skills and experience may be required elsewhere, and that's okay. Or maybe police is not doing it for you anymore. Law enforcement is not doing it for you anymore. Firefighting is not doing it for you anymore. And I've seen that too, where
Mhm.
people leave the field and go do something they're passionate about, something they love, something they like. Every time I'm in this job, that's all I think about. And they're like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I'm slowly transitioning from chasing and tackling people to more investigative stuff, more office stuff. I am, I've been coaching and training people, throughout my career, but I'm really fine tuning it now, where I'm like, yeah, it would be nice to just have a regular shift, not being all bruised and needing to ice, or getting an ice bath before I get to bed, because tomorrow I got to make sure I'm not all stiff and half broken.
Right. I hear you about the body issues because, as I'm getting older and I'm a couple years older than you, I'm not fighting fires, but I'm still like throwing myself on the ground and getting back up again
Yeah,
and throwing myself on the ground and getting back up again and kicking my leg.
yeah,
And I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel quite the same as when I was
exactly.
20 something. So
Yes,
there are shifts that
yes,
must be made and more
agree.
mindfulness about what we're actually doing with our bodies so that we don't
E-
completely burn out. I know you had talked about
Exactly.
burning out, and we can't do that when we're teaching and when we're trying to save people.
Exactly, and it's in both fields high burnout rates for a reason, right? Because that desire to not disappoint and to continue helping. But one thing I've learned, one thing that again that changes the perception is if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of others.
That's true.
And I am proof of it, and I have lived through it. I've had to learn it the hard way. My young self would be, man, just learn to meditate, learn to stretch, learn to do yoga, learn to do Pilates, just maintain your body. Again, I was like, I'm 30 plus. I'm good. Let's do it. Though I've had injury, I've broken a leg, I've broken an arm, but I've always bounced back so well. I'm like, nah, nothing to
Yeah.
it.
It's a little harder when
And
you
then
get older.
yes, it truly is. To have to go. I literally, and it was totally experimental. The stuff that I went through to recover, because there were just new techniques coming in. They're like, might work for you, it might not. I'm like, okay, well that didn't work. Can we try something else? And I was always open because I was like, I need, like, this is what I know. This is what I want to keep doing. Even coming from the military, which my goal was, Marines. I had Marines in my head, and that's what I was going to do. And I had a discussion with my father. It was like, you want to be a Marine? Are you sure? I was like, well, yeah. There's nothing better than the devil dog. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I want to do. And then injury just sidelined me, and I never got back on that boat. That ability to adapt is so
Yeah,
so important.
it is.
Just refocus. It will save you a lot of trouble, and it will save you a lot of headaches. And being able to sit with my young self, like sometimes follow your instincts. As parents, we want to protect our kids and we want to instill things in them. But I find my parents, it was hard to connect with what the realities we were going to face.
Mm,
No one could predict the Googles and the Amazons. That was unknown. That was brand new. That is never done before. My parents, the video game will never make your life. You need to go get a job, a real job. I have
mm,
friends that are computer engineers that are
right.
designing games,
They're creating
right,
code and
creating code, and they're making a doctor's salary. The advice is never bad, especially people that care about you. But it's learning what applies to you and what doesn't. And it's good to always take it,
yeah,
and put it in a bag. You might pull it out later.
yeah,
Some advice my dad has given me didn't come fruition till I was in my 30s.
right.
you know,
But then
and
then it's like kind of, oh yeah, he did say that, didn't he? Okay.
right.
Can you tell me one thing that you miss about your high school self, and then one thing that's gotten better?
I miss the just that freedom, just so much to give, and that full tank that just never seems to empty out somehow. You sitting here right now, you're like, how? And you can't even fathom how those all these experiences put into one has kind of honed me to be that present self, that better dad, to know to say, hey, I've worked 7 days in a row and I am burnt. I need a break.
Mm-hmm.
Those have gotten better with time. But I do miss, those new experiences, that butterfly you get, when you think about, oh yeah, because for a while I was considering going, the dance route. Juilliard, was very much in my mind. I was like, I think I can. I think if I apply, I can. Meeting others that have gone through the process that say, you don't need the Juilliard to enjoy it. You really don't. It was a very difficult field at the time,
It still is.
right?
It always
Right.
will
It's
be.
cut, right. It's pretty cutthroat because there's only so much that can fit into it, right? And I feel like just giving that back to my kids, I'm like, I've done my part. I kind of done my part on that end, passing on. You could play music if you want. You could dance if you'd like to. It's hard to put it into clear context that everyone can get, but people who've gone through it will be like, aha,
Yeah.
that waking up in the morning and like all I have to do is go to school and do homework. Realize how liberating that was. I spent almost 9 months
Mhm.
going through to my dispatch course for emergency services,
Mhm.
and that's all I had to do.
Right.
Wake up and go to school, study, and do my homework. I was like, this is the best thing ever. How would I ever let? Why did I ever let that go?
Right.
But
Well,
yeah,
because you do have
I
to
do,
feed your family.
right. There's that comes into fruition. That drive in high school was just so intoxicating, and it's what allowed me to be. Very few people do EMS, fire, and police. Very few, because you get really put in a bubble, whichever one that you jump into. I never want to be a full officer, a police officer, because of my own desires changed while I was going through the process, right?
Mhm.
uh, for my work itself, because my scope of work is very focused.
Mhm.
It's very focused on healthcare, so healthcare protection and security and stuff like that. So that's what my focus in law enforcement is right now.
Right.
And because we are such a niche industry, like mental health is big. So a lot of mental health, we call it apprehension. So people who get brought in because family is worried or friends are worried or even law enforcement is worried for them, they come to my facilities, and we intake them and we make and we keep them safe, and I legally can arrest. I literally can take someone's freedom away. Like when you grasp the magnitude of that, as you start doing a job, you just do the job, but one day it just hits you. Like I literally can take someone's freedom away from them.
That's
Like
crazy.
they cannot go anywhere. I can use force to control someone. And those are some of the things that you grasp with, because right, violence is never the answer, is what you learn when you're growing up, and you also learn the faults, unfortunately, that we still carry on society. There are improving, and we do better in them, and if we keep pushing, it's that learning, right? That same theme of keep pushing, keep learning, keep improving. I think it will never be perfect because we're not perfect.
But I think that if we spend more time allowing ourselves to understand more about ourselves and more about other people, I think that that can go a long way for, society to kind of heal itself
It
internally.
truly does.
Yeah.
It truly does.
Mm.
Law enforcement has changed in that way since I've been in, where now I have an officer discretion where I don't need to give the person $1,000 ticket. I can be, listen, this is what you've done and this is where it's gotten you. I understand you're struggling. I understand life is hard. We are people too. We're in uniform, but I guarantee you, I'm a person under this uniform and I get it. But you need to be careful so you don't get yourself to the point where you are going to get $1,000 ticket. The next officer may not be using his discretion and not to give it to you. He may not be giving you discretion not to take your car away. If your car is not, registered properly or not you don't have the proper papers, just leave it at home so you don't lose it, because then it costs you more to try and take it out, and then it affects you in other ways.
Right.
Really teaching people and really showing them that I understand, versus just following the law and just giving them that ticket. Good
Well,
luck.
listen, I feel like if more of the police and the law enforcement community kind of came to their jobs with that approach, I think we'd have a much better societal perception of what law enforcement really needs to be. I mean, yeah, like sometimes you got to take down the bad guys, like, and we get that, but not everybody is a bad guy. And sometimes it's people fighting for their lives to get from one moment to the next, like adolescents,
It's very true. I mean, I know it doesn't seem like it, and I myself, I'm sitting here and I've wondered sometimes, seeing some things that occur. I'm like, how? I mean, I said, what procedure were you using? I don't see that law in the law book. Where did you? How did you come from here to here?
Yeah,
But again, they are people, and sometimes they too are just trying to survive to the next day.
yeah,
You don't know if they've been on 11 days. You don't know if things are bad at home. You don't know what they're struggling with. People don't realize law enforcement goes from one call to the next. So they may have
yeah.
dealt with a kid in a car that was strapped, that now didn't make it,
Hmm.
to now going to your house and dealing with you arguing with your mom and dad,
Right.
right? So it's a lot to carry, and I say we need to provide them better
Yes,
outlets and
yes,
better support for them,
yes.
to allow them to go through these things, and not
And
go
process.
into robot mode,
Yeah,
and allow them to process these
yeah.
emotions.
Agreed,
And
agreed.
now I would say in the last decade, it's the best I've seen officers supported, because we can take a leave and say, I need to go speak to someone. I am on the edge, and I feel like if I don't go speak to someone, I am going to become that guy that made that mistake.
Right, right,
And sometimes there's no malice to it. There's no race to it.
right.
Sometimes it's literally an officer trying to
Like,
survive day to
right.
day.
Like they're
Like,
on that wire and
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's like,
yeah.
I feel like
They
that's a
really.
whole other conversation.
It truly is. It
That's a
truly
big
is.
conversation, but it's a valuable
It
one.
true, and it teaches. I teach my kids that. I said, someone who seems angry, or someone who seems sad,
Mhm.
it's okay to ask them why, so you understand. And you can comfort them, because
And that
sometimes it has
changes
nothing
them
to do with
too.
you.
That
It truly
changes
does.
them too. When you reach out of yourself to go and to say, look, okay, I'm perceiving some negative energy, but it's usually not about you at all. It's about them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it truly is. And I've
Um,
had that in my work, where I've someone completely reacts in a different way, and I'm just like, dude, just calm down. I'm really trying to help you here. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm just, there's so much and I'm like, okay,
right.
let's take it back. Let's take it way back. And it's similar to, adolescents in high school, where they just that
Ah, yeah.
emotion. Right.
We're
And you
just,
kind of
as
have to
adults, we're
reel,
just big giant adolescents.
and you have to reel them back. You have to reel them back, because not everybody's fortunate to have the support system I've had. I cannot fathom how lucky I was to have moved when I moved, to be in the school that I was, to have the people around me that I did, because many don't. I mean, I could have been in a Ramapo High School, right? Because I was right at that border before. Once I got to Spring Valley, my dad moved us closer, but I was at the border, right? I went to Kakiat Junior High, which no longer exists, but
Um,
that's where I went. So technically, I should have gone to Ramapo, but I ended up going to Spring Valley. So
so we're going to move to what is question 9 now. You've given a lot of advice, but if you could give a piece of sage advice to high school students now, what would it be?
this too shall pass.
Mm.
I've been thinking about that since you sent me all my question. I said, what has resonated with me, what has stayed with me
Mhm.
this long, as we talked about the emotions that we go through and the process that we go through, this too shall pass comes back over and over. This too shall pass. You will weather that storm just like you've weathered all others. It will take a bit longer, but you will. That breakup will feel better in a few weeks. certain things that happen have nothing to do with you. That's why it will pass. People projecting negative emotions sometimes have nothing to do with you, so just let it pass. High school seems so heavy and so big, and it will pass. You have 4 years, and then college will come, and maybe you will go, maybe you won't, and you will figure it out. Actually, a coach, I believe, that told me this too shall pass. I had a 200-meter run, and it was my first time running the 200 meters. And I practice. Every time I run the 200-meter, I run it so hard that I end up my face in a garbage can. And she's like, so I get to the race, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know how this gonna go. I'm like, I have to go first to meet the garbage, and I'll be back. And I came back, and she held me, and she said, she said, this too shall pass. And I was like, wow, okay.
That's important.
So
That's really,
yeah,
really important advice for teenagers. They don't know. They don't know.
no,
They
no,
think that like this feeling that they have is going to be forever, and
forever.
they don't know what to do with it. And I was like, no,
No.
you're going to be okay. Like, this is going to
Yes,
go away.
you will absolutely be okay. And they were, oh my God, my parents are driving me crazy. They're ruining my life.
Right. No.
This too shall pass. You will
That's
come to the time where you wish you were living at mom and dad, actually, but hey,
well,
it will
it's a
pass
whole
too.
nother story. They'll never believe that.
No,
Not
no.
for another 5 years,
Hey, I moved out. I was 17, right? So to this day, I'm like, why didn't I stay home till I was 30 again? Can somebody tell me why? So yeah.
They're so in a hurry to go nowhere. So tell me, what are kind of pulling away from high school now, kind of coming back into your adult being now? You're nearly, but not quite 40 being. What are 3 self-care practices that you do now to help to center or regulate your adult self now?
Stepping back is one of them. Very, very important. There would be stepping back from work. You love your family, you love your friends. Sometimes you need you time, and it's just as important as being with them because it makes you better in their presence when you take that time. Caring for my mental health has been, one of those priorities in my life, having seen so much mental health issues in the world. Some that we don't even know are mental health are actually, characterized as that now. So I find it so important, even if it means me sitting in front of a show for an hour by myself to help me just not think about anything, responsibilities, work, family, just to take that time physically caring for my body. Your body is this amazing, machine, amazing system that works in ways that we have not yet completely understand, but I know I need to take care of it, by keeping regular exercise, eating properly, hydrating properly, stretching. A lot of us, especially guys, just go to the gym and lift those weights and put them down. I am telling you, when you get closer to certain ages, you have to do other things. Those people that look like that's all they do not. They incorporate other things, is why they can maintain a physique like that for so long. I have athlete friends, I have regular friends, and we can all agree to that, the importance of self-care, which means your mental health, your physical health, and your emotional health. They all That is the three you need to regulate to stay healthy as long as you can.
Oh, it's been so many years, and I remember you very, very vividly, in class, and just being so excited and so enthusiastic and just kind of loving. I was like, yeah, this guy is like, he's up right up
Best
my alley. All right. And so
best class in my books. Best class in my books. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love history. I love sciences, and I love English and all that. But I find this, if I had to pick a class that probably was more fulfilling for me, it would have been definitely your class, because it covered so many aspects of my life, right? And it helps so much. Yes, the English helps with specific things, but like life lessons and life skills definitely comes from the alternative classes like yours, and it's so important, so important.
So thank you so much. And everybody, tune in next week for our next episode of Change for the Better, the power of arts in education. Thank you, Jean. Mwah.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing. It was such an honor to do this. I hope someone hears this that touches home for them, and keep doing it. You are so amazing in so many ways, and you keep finding ways to be even more amazing. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.